Hello, I'm Dr. Alan Wolfelt, and I'm honored to serve as the director of the Center for Loss and Life Transition in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a privilege to be asked to do some recording of some recent articles that I've tried to put pen to paper this past week in an effort to be of help to people related to our current challenges with the coronavirus. So one piece I've written is titled Nurturing Hope in Difficult Times. Thanks for allowing me to share it with you. An opening quote. It was Pliny the Elder who said, "Hope is the pillar that holds up the world." Well, just 2 days ago, a caller into our Center for Loss here asked a question that's really on the minds of many people today when she said, "Are we going to get through this?" Well, it quickly became pretty obvious to me that as the conversation continued, that she was experiencing feelings of grief, that she was in search of borrowing some much-needed hope. And as I hung up the phone, after about a 20 to 30 minute conversation, which I hope I was supportive to her with, I found myself being drawn to want to write a little bit about hope. Because especially during challenging times like we're faced with right now, it's indeed the pillar that in fact holds up the world. Well, as the director of a Center for Loss, I advocate oftentimes, of course, that part of our humanity is the need to acknowledge and to embrace dark emotions. Our culture usually isn't always real good about that. As a matter of fact, we've been termed a fairly mourning avoidant culture. So not being so good at it and supporting others at times of need, there's nothing like right now to know that people, of course, need that support. That's an essential part of our human life. Matter of fact, the term mourning means the shared response to loss. Instead, it's our detriment at times that we try to be happy and at times overly hopeful when we need to embrace realities. But the key is balance between the two. We need both. We need to honor the light and the dark, the happy, the sad, and everything that's in between. Because all of it really, in fact, does belong. All of it's authentic. And whatever is authentic is normal and it's necessary. Usually we're out of balance because we choose to shine our awareness only on the good times, the good stuff. You know, we not long ago had the theme song of Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin kind of replaced by Pharrell with his happiness song. And while there's times, of course, to celebrate and to be happy, there's also times, again, to acknowledge that we're faced with some challenges. But right now, in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, I believe we're at risk for that balance tipping too far in the other way, in the direction of fear, of despair. Yes, in difficult times, we have to remember to embrace and honor our need to have hope. You might ask, what's hope? Well, hope is an expectation of a good that is yet to be. It's an inner knowing that the future holds positive things for us. It's a trust that no matter the current circumstances we're faced with, the days to come will reveal times where we can return to joy and happiness and fun. It's forward-looking, yet it's also, of course, experienced in the now. Like mourning, nurturing hope is an active process. It's something we can do. Let's look at what we can do to embrace hope, even as we're experiencing the many losses caused by this pandemic. One thing we can do is, of course, practice some mindfulness, if you will. As I have reflected on what's been going on, most of us in North America and even across the world, of course, are sheltering in place. And though our normal lives have been completely disrupted, and we may be experiencing very real personal losses, such as friends that are ill or family members, some challenges financially, of course, lost connections with those that are closest to us, our family, our friends, just to name a few. But many of us are also in this moment very thankful that we still have a roof over our head and food on the table and we're comfortable. That doesn't mean we shouldn't forget those people that are very much at the bottom, if you will, of Maslow's hierarchy who may not have that shelter, but many of us have a lot of things to still have gratitude for during this difficult time. Well, practicing mindfulness means learning to be present to our immediate surroundings right now. As I've been reflecting on this and wrote this article just in the last 48 hours, I'm reminded that as I was writing it at 5:30 a.m. in the morning that the sun was peeking out from the beautiful sunrise that I could appreciate. I can also, of course, spend time visiting with people that I'm quarantined with, my wife and one of my young adult children. I can spend time with those that I'm close to that aren't here through, of course, video calls with friends and, again, family. The more I can use this time to strengthen relationships with those people that I love, the more hope I have for the future gatherings that we're going to look forward to sharing together. What about relinquishing the issue or the illusion, if you will, of control? There's a fine line, I think, between A, informing ourselves about the pandemic and steps we can take to keep ourselves and others safe, and B, over-consuming information and misinformation, causing undue stress and even at times despair, depression. In this information age, we have limitless content at our fingertips. We could read, watch, and listen to new information about COVID-19 for many hours a day and still never be all caught up. It makes sense that we might be tempted to overconsume information in an effort to feel control about what's happening. But the trouble with that is that we as individuals can't really control the epidemic. We can influence it by doing social distancing and other things that have been recommended. But we can't fully control what happens to us and to those that we love, that we care about. Relinquishing this illusion of control can lessen our anxiety and help us build trust in our own capacity to cope with what's happening. It's almost as if the more we acknowledge our helplessness, the more we become helpful to ourselves and to others, that's a relationship. If we work on mindfulness, we don't have to obsess and to worry. Instead, we can learn to be okay with our lack of control and surrender to our own resilience, to surrender, to stand under what we can't control. When tomorrow comes, we'll handle what comes tomorrow. But today, of course, we're only responsible for right now, the moment, now. What about building hope? If we believe that our futures will include moments of joy and love and meaning, which I hope you embrace as well as myself, we already have within that ourselves the capacity to have that spark, if you will, of hope. We can grow that spark into a flame by intentionally building hope into each and every day. I'd remind you, each of us have a divine spark, that which gives our lives meaning and purpose. And right now, there's natural conditions that mute that divine spark. So don't be ashamed if you've been struggling with issues of grief and felt downward movement in your psyche and had some elements of anxiety. Don't shame yourself for that. Of course, that's normal. But I think it is important to ask ourselves, how do we build hope during difficult times? And here's just a few ways. I'll just give you a few, and I'm sure you can think of additional ones that fit your unique personality and your situation. But one, by taking part in activities that we care about to the extent that we can do that while still honoring our need to shelter in place. What are things you can find to do at home that allow you to have some activities that you enjoy and care about in the context of the sheltering need that we have right now? Two, by engaging in spiritual practices that are appropriate for you. Three, by potentially making a collage of words or pictures that symbolize hope in our mind and in our heart. Four, by intentionally imagining and giving thought to the future that we do desire, that we hope for. Five, by making future plans that excite us and know that we'll enjoy and that we can look forward to. Six, by making sure we remember the principle that one of the best ways to help yourself is to at times help others. So finding ways you can help people that you're even quarantined with, or to be present to people that you know find your presence to be supportive. Seven, by staying in close contact with people that you care about, ideally through video and phone calls or texts or ways that still, again, honor the need that we're often faced with right now in terms of limited contact with folks. But there's ways we can stay in touch, thank goodness. And eight, by taking care of our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our social connections, and our spirits, our life force again. Remember, divine spark, we all have one, that which gives our lives meaning and purpose. And while that's compromised naturally right now, you want to find ways to still keep that divine spark lit. Consciously choose hope. Let's talk about that. Please understand that hope is not something that we just experience passively, that floats into our life some way. Instead, hope will enter when you create ways to consciously bring it into your daily life. Despite these challenging times, the door you open to hope each and every day can dramatically and will dramatically influence the quality of your life and your living. Consciously choosing hope means deliberately focusing on it, paying attention to it, inviting it into a given moment, letting yourself feel it as it enters. Be creative with how you give attention to hope and invite it in, moment by moment. Choose hope over fear. Choose hope instead of despair. If you, in fact, do start feeling hopeless and helpless, act with intention to bring hope into that very moment. If hope feels out of reach right now, and it does for some based on the calls we've been having into our Center for Loss, consider borrowing a little to get you through. I call it borrowed hope. When you can't muster the energy to cultivate it in yourself, it's possible to receive hope from others. It's really actually very appropriate at times like these to turn to people who in fact have hope to lend. How do you know someone is hope-filled? Well, I would suggest that it's in looking for friends and family members who have a more hopeful outlook or spiritual optimism, if you will, about life, that even in challenging times, they can see that hope is that expectation of a good that is yet to be. These are people who I believe who have a positive energy when they are in your presence. They can make you smile even just by simply hearing their voice. They're also usually naturally people who have the capacity for empathy, to listen. They radiate energy that can really help anchor you right now. Remember, hope is a renewable resource. Borrow it now, if you need to, and know that in the future, when the time is right, you can pay it forward to someone else who's in need. You know, in the words of Viktor Frankl, I remind you, he said, I quote, "Everything can be taken away from a man," and I'd add a woman, "but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, is to choose one's own way." My friends, as you choose your own way during these challenging times, I invite you to nurture hope and to be grateful for your life each and every day. Thank you so much for allowing me to reflect on hope at a time that we need to embrace that expectation of a good that is yet to be.